Hello and welcome back to Investment Vitals. I'm live on the stream now. Let me wait for a couple of minutes for people to join in while I put in the screens in place, the presentation in place to address the queries that some people might have in terms of the FTX claim case. I hope I'm audible. Give me a buzz. Yeah. Hi, fantastic. Good to see you as well. Thank you so much. Uh, Give me a second. While I'll place the presentation on screen. I was then rushing for through a time, so I couldn't set it up in advance. But give me a second, and I'll place everything on screen right now. In the meanwhile, if you have any queries or clarification that you want to discuss, or any inputs from your side that you might have, do mention in the comment section. It might be useful for a lot of people. Uh, and while I go ahead and put the slides in place, but I would rather want to be a more interactive session. Very little time is left for completing the process end to end. I had a session 8 hours back, in fact 9 hours back today, mostly for viewers in Asia and Europe. I know people in the Western Hemisphere, US and North and South Americas would have been late at night, and therefore I thought it was important that I have this stream so that more people can benefit out of it, specifically those staying in the Americas, North and South. Now, if you have any questions and comments, put it in the screen right now, and we'll try to address it. Otherwise, I'll eventually move towards the AMA that we have, to the presentation that I had made. Yeah, I don't see any questions coming in directly now. So let me quickly run through the presentation, and meanwhile, I believe more people might join in. I had a reasonable amount of presence today morning. Uh, I hope I'm audible. Just give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. Can you hear me? Yeah, give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. I'm not sure if I'm audible. I would presume that I'm audible. I'll move ahead with this. Let me post it in a couple of places. I hope I'm audible. Yeah, I can hear myself. So I believe I'm audible. I'll move ahead. Uh, while you guys drop in queries and comments in the chat. The presentation that I have, a small one, addressing most of the common queries and discussion points that most people had on the channel. I'll put it on stream right now so that we can proceed with it as we go. Now, this is the slide addressing most of the common concerns. I hope it is visible now. Uh, Now, okay, the first point, I'll start off with the introduction slide. Today is the last day deadline, 4 p.m. Eastern Prevailing Time is the deadline for closing the entire process end to end in both Bahamas as well as in US. In US, we don't have the option of filing for, we don't have the option of filing for proof of claim right now. We only have the option of closing the election option. In Bahamas, though, people have an option of filing for both a proof of debt as well as for voting. So essentially, they can do the process end to end in Bahamas process. So those that is something important. Now, with that out of the way, let me quickly move the standard disclaimer. Where is Yeah, I think this disclaimer has been worded a little wrong. Now, there's a standard disclaimer. You can read through it. This is not financial advice. The content provided on this channel, including all videos, description, and comments, is for information and educational purposes only. It does not constitute legal, financial, or professional advice. The information shared is based on personal opinions and experiences and should not be relied upon as substitute for professional advice from a qualified legal or financial expert. Always seek a counsel for qualified professional regarding any legal or financial decisions. The creator of this channel assumes no responsibilities or liabilities for any actions taken based on the contents of this channel. Now, yeah, I think the couple of sets questions start trickling in. Fourth dimension. Hi, fourth dimension. How are you? I hope everything is good at your end. Hi, in my US process, the fifth step is still not showing green tick mark, but the symbol which says that if the claim is not submitted through FTX portal, it would not show the status. Though I can see the claim submitted on Crawl website, should I opt for Bahamas process in this case? Now, I cannot be offering financial or legal advice, but somebody had a similar question in today's morning session as well, 8 hours back. He was also facing the same issue that step number 5 did not show a green checkbox. In my own personal case, I saw that the green checkbox is on. There might have been certain issue in your submission case, depending on what the symbol is. They have given a narrative of the symbol. If it's even if it's not a green tick, there are other options that they have highlighted as for what they imply. You have to look at what the option is getting highlighted in your case and take a decision based on that. If you're not certain, or if you have any ambiguity, you always have the option of filing in Bahamas as well. Again, this is not an advice from my side, but the other viewer who had discussed today morning felt it appropriate to file in the Bahamas process, because till now the discussions that have been laid out by both PwC, that is the joint liquidators in Bahamas, and also the US proceeding, they claim that the date, the payout timelines, and amounts are expected to be similar. So if you are in doubt, well, you might choose, of course, based on your own personal preferences, to go ahead and rather file it in the Bahamas process end to end. You still have time for that, a couple of hours left. I hope that addresses the query. Again, beyond this couple of things, I'll quickly move while other comments trickle in. Estimated recovery expected at 119%, comprising of 100% of the amount that was outstanding or recorded as on 11th of November 2022, which was a bankruptcy date, and 9% simple interest basis amount per annum for the period till the time you are paid. Let me see if there are any questions. No other further questions till now. Yes. So this is the basis of payment. Based on this, this is the expectation quoted by the PwC people, who are essentially the joint liquidators for Bahamas process. Convenience class people are expected to get 190%. Now, another question is non-convenience class, which is people having exposure or recovery amount of more than 50,000. That is the reconciled claim value of more than 50,000 US dollars. Are expect to receive between 129% to 143% of the claim value, comprising of the same set of two of the 100% of reconciled value, just like convenience class, 9% simple interest basis for just like convenience class, plus a share of proceeds from the supplementary remission funds as defined in the plan of recognition. So net it is estimated to be between 129 and 143%. Any other questions? Please do trickle in your queries and comments in the section in the comment section, so that those get addressed. Otherwise, I'll keep running through the presentation quickly. Now, so this is the basis. Non-convenience class customers may therefore get a higher amount. However, remember that it is estimated that convenience class customers would get paid out faster. Some people estimate that the payout might happen as early as end of this year, and more likely towards in the first quarter of the next year. Uh, those who are not in convenience class might get it much later. It's expected to be much later. Could take years as well. I see no other questions further. I'll move ahead. Now, in terms of treatment of interest for convenience class calculation, your convenience, based on the discussion that was laid out by PwC in the event that they had organized, in that they had stated that 100% of the claim value would be considered for for a convenience class. For example, if somebody has a reconciled claim value of 49,999 US dollars, that is $1 less than $50,000, but an interest component thereof are around, let's say, 9,000 US dollars or 10,000 US dollars. It is not 60,000 that will be considered for your classification of convenience class. It will rather be the 50,000, which is your reconciled claim value. That will be the basis based on which you'll be considered as part of convenience class. Again, not a financial advice from my side or legal advice. This is what I remember having heard from PwC. Not an opinion, not an advice. No further questions on this still. Okay, mode of payment. The PwC had stated in the call that they expect to pay stable coins of fiat through crypto channels or through payment aggregators. At that point of time, they had mentioned that they are trying to avoid wire transfers, probably because of the cost implications thereof, which implies that they might rather go down through a exchange potentially, or maybe through payment providers like PayPal, etc. Again, this is what I had understood from the discussion, not financial advice. If you have an issue, you can always drop an email to this to the email gbill_fdm at _creditors@pwc.com. This is important because somebody had raised a question that his account is locked. Now, quickly moving through mode of payment, as I said, is discussed. Tax treatment. Now, I had raised this question specifically speaking. The response by the PwC team in context of the Bahamas proceeding was that they will be attempting to have the same treatment. They expect to have the same treatment for both US and Bahamas. On the question that I specifically asked for the treatment of withholding taxes, they had specified that they'll make all attempts to avoid payments of withholding taxes on their part, which implies that their attempt would be that customers' payout does not reduce the withholding tax from their payout. Now, this was what was discussed, and this is what I remember. This is not a financial or taxation advice. You might want to consult your tax advisor if you feel it appropriate. An important question was on the deadline of KYC. The viewers of the customers who have been following this channel know that we would be receiving an email for completion of KYC, specifically in the Bahamas process, and customers are expected to file a KYC within 30 days of that email. Otherwise, the second email will be sent, and within 60 days of the second request, this will have to be completed. Essentially, implying you have an entire windows of 30 days, and the worst case scenario, end-to-end window of 90 days for completing your KYC. This is very important because it has very clearly been specified that if it is not, if within 90 days, uh, that is within 60 days of second request, if KYC is not completed, then customers would have been deemed to have forfeited their right to receive distribution. This is as I'm reading, as it is from the FTX election process overview document, which was released by PwC. This was I had made a specific video on this. Now, in terms of the timelines, again, things are very fluid. Things are getting. It is once this election process gets concluded today, there'll be greater clarity of how many people are going in for US and how many going for Bahamas. Based on that, the two entities might be proceeding with the KYC document requests. For the expectation that the PwC team had was to have the KYC mail sent out by end of August at the earliest, and by latest by early October. This was an expectation they had. Again, this is not an advice of any sort. This is something that is merely based on expectation from the two teams. Now, a question that I had was on clawback clause in terms of certain geographies have a provision for a clawback, essentially meaning that in case of a bankruptcy, if a certain amount has been withdrawn, then sometimes a clawback is applied. Essentially, that customer is expected to pay that amount back, which could have implied that, let's presume that you have a claim of $10,000 and you had withdrawn $2,000, say within the clawback period window, which typically is 90 days in most cases, then you would could have been paid $8,000. Now, on this question specifically, PwC said that as of now, there is no provision in being envisaged for clawback, and it is, in their opinion, it might not necessarily be applied unless they are able to establish that you had prior knowledge of in this context. From the discussion, my understanding was that unless you are, say, presume assignment and feed yourself, or you are an employee who had direct access, then the risk of clawback is low, is what is my understanding from the discussions was. This is not an advice again, but this was a little comforting talk that I heard from the other side. Okay, guys, while I'm running through the presentation, this is not the key intention. If you want, you guys can still put in the queries and comments in the comment section, and we can discuss that, because that would be more interactive session as I anticipated. Now, in terms of question on certain sanctioned countries like maybe say Iran, North Korea, so on and so forth, JOL had specified they will still try and seek means to pay to customers in those countries as well, irrespective of the national of their tax residence, if it is legally allowed to be paid to those entities. So they will try to find out ways to pay to customers who are based in countries that have financial sanctions, etc. So they will be making all attempts to pay to everybody who is entitled. Essentially, they had mentioned that merely because of your tax residence, they would not be zeroizing the claim. This is what I understood from the discussion. Again, not financial or legal advice. Now, for customers of Europe and Japan, so on and so forth. Now, as some of you might know that FTX was operating through various arms. Like FTX US was a different arm, legal entity. FTX.com, which was a legal entity for most geographies. Similarly, there was FTX Europe, EU for Europe, so on and so forth. Now, the cases pertaining to these entities are generally being treated in their respective jurisdiction. For example, in US, the court proceeding is being taken separately, but they have decided to or agreed to collaborate with FTX Bahamas. That is known. But for Europe, it is, I don't understand. I understand there is no such proceeding. In this context, PwC team had discussed that on the specific question that I had raised to them, they had discussed that they, if even although FTX Europe was operating separate entity, there were settlements between FTX Europe and FTX.com. Therefore, in cases where, for example, a Europe-based customer who was a customer of FTX Europe has a claim from FTX Europe, it should be treated separately in FTX Europe jurisdiction. This is my understanding from what I had heard over the call. But there would, because FTX.com was also a settling agency, there could be instances where a FTX Europe customer would have certain claims in transit from FTX.com that never reached FTX Europe, or some similar set of transactions. In that amount of transaction for that customer would be considered under FTX Bahamas proceeding, is what what I've understood. Again, this is not a advice, but it was also mentioned that such customers can go and look at the schedules that have been released to check their eligibility or the eligible claim on those documents, depending on the jurisdiction that you have. So it might be logical to rather go and check these documents to identify the claim amount that you guys have. Okay, Ben Stiller says that I have a claim less than 50. Hi Ben, welcome to the stream. I have a claim less than 50,000, I believe, US dollars as a European customer, and I just want to get the lost amount back quickly. I chose Bahamas process. Your opinion on my choice? I cannot express an opinion or an advice. As I mentioned a couple of minutes back, uh, over my discussion with the PwC team in the Bahamas proceeding case, I was made to understand that I understand from that discussion that FTX Europe case is being handled separately in FTX Europe, and hence you might receive a payout from the European counterpart. Your claim amount from Bahamas is likely to be restricted to the amount that was pending payment from FTX Bahamas to FTX Europe. Now, this is what I had understood. For better clarity, if you want comfort on this aspect, you might want to go and look at the amount that has been specified in your proof of debt claim on the website portal itself, in the proof of debt, or on the exchange that were released in this context. That would give you an amount, an idea of the amount that they have admitted as your claim amount. I hope that answers the question. If not, please do mention in the comment section. Well, okay, as I mentioned some time back, keep putting in the questions, and while I quickly run through the slides. Now, litigations in US and impact on Bahamas. This is a question that I have had, that in case there are certain class actions, for example, in US, would and in case a higher amount is announced pronounced as a verdict by a US court, would had it have a bearing on the Bahamas proceeding? To this, I was responded to in a more cryptic way. It doesn't really say much, but if I was told that in Bahamas process you must waive the entitlements in US, implying thereof interpretation could somebody can interpret in a manner that if you are going through the Bahamas process, any incremental amount that might arise in US might not necessarily be payable to those who have opted for the Bahamas process. Now, this is what I vaguely understood, but again, this is not an advice. You might want to consult your advisors in this case. Ben says thank you. No, Ben, thank you so much for being here. It's my pleasure. The very idea of why I started making videos on this channel was, for to help as many people as possible. I didn't want others to be in the same state because I couldn't find a resource on FTX while I was trying to file my FTX proof of claim. So I didn't want anybody to be in the same boat. Now I'll quickly move through the rest of the slides. Again, put in your questions in the meanwhile, and I'll try to address them. In the document that was released in FTX DM election process overview, they had specified about the 75 million US million dollar claim pool. This I have noted down verbatim, copied from there. It says no distributions in Bahamas process could be diluted if GOL accept incremental claims in excess of 75,000 US dollars on the scheduled basis. However, on a current information, as per their confirmed information and claims to date, the GOL, which is the PwC process, do not expect this will happen. I'll quickly elaborate on this. This is also covered in the towards the end of the slide. Uh, Now, as I mentioned in the current case, both the proceedings have tried to collaborate. As I covered in one of the other videos, a global settlement agreement was executed between FTX Digital and the US debtors on 19th of August 2023. Under this agreement, both as a result of which was approved by the Supreme Court of Bahamas and the US Bankruptcy Court. As a result, FTX Digital is entitled to access the whole amount of FTX estate for the benefit of its customers, of its creditors, including all relations and gains made by the US debtors, as both estates will pool recoveries to pay creditors of both estates on the same basis. Now, again, having said that, despite this, there's a condition that was specified, which says that if the JOL accepts an incremental claim in incremental claim in excess of 75 US million dollars, there could be dilution. Now, as an interpretation, I'm not a legal expert, but an interpretation could be that the point I was that was also discussed was that once you file into the Bahamas process, you are essentially getting past, you are letting go of the US proceeding. And an interpretation that somebody might make out of it is that in case there's a higher amount that eventually gets paid out in the US processes because of some class action, and so US has a very strong legal system. So in case because of that legal system, if a higher amount gets it becomes payable within US, theoretically speaking, somebody might interpret this as saying that in that case that amount would not be eligible available to the US to the Bahamas pool. Now this is an interpretation somebody might have. I don't have any interpretations on this. I would not be giving any advices any sort. There are certain other queries. I'll quickly run through this. The difference between Bahamas and US. We know that claims below $10 is not being considered in US, but is admissible within Bahamas process. Bar rate is the same, and the GOL 75 US million dollars I spoke about some time back. Now, apart from the ones that I discussed, again, I'll go back to the disclaimer page because it is important. Give me a second here. Yeah, back to the disclaimer here. Okay, Agni, hi Agni, how are you? I hope everything's going good with you. Agni says, I filed proof of debt on FTX digital, but didn't do so on FTX. Missed deadline. Both liquidators send me email to vote through. As I did not file in FTX, does it mean I can only vote for Bahamas? Now, I cannot advise you on this. I'm not an advisor, as the disclaimer says here. But if you have not filed in FTX US, I I believe that you might not be eligible to vote in the FTX use case. You try that option out. If you go to FTX, the claims.ftx.com portal, the portal that is specified in the email, you can try this option out. But I don't. Again, my interpretation. If I were you, I would have assumed that I would not. I might not necessarily be able to vote in the FTX US process. You can try that out, but I do. It seems like little unlikely. So I hope that addresses the query here. Now, a couple of other things that are not covered in the presentation, in terms of somebody had asked me a query about the treatment, any benefits out of arising out of Bahamas or from US respectively. Now, again, the official statement from FTX Digital, that is the JOL of Bahamas proceeding, is that the amount to be paid out and the timing for the payouts are expected to be the same. Um, but again, as we saw some time back, in terms of the restriction that was covered as a part of the GSA, uh, there might be a possibility. Sorry, excuse me. Well, okay, I got cut short. ICU has a query. Hi, ICU. I think that is not an issue for step five. For me, claim status on step five showing two options showing two options: claim submitted, agreed, and agreed schedule. Well, if you think it's not an issue, it's a great thing. Well, I don't really recall what the options therein were, but if you believe that it is not an option, it's a great thing for you. That you'll be admissible in US process. That's fantastic thing then. Now, a couple of other considerations that some of you might have. Yeah, where my brothers okay where my ICU says that where my brother's account showing green tick, uh, and there is claim status showing only one option, claim submitted. Well, I can't recall what is written among the different options provided, but mine had definitely had a green tick. So green tick is the most certain form of acknowledgement from under that proceeding. But I can't recall what are the options. I remember there were more than couple of four or five options that they had given narration as for what is the status. You might want to look at that. It'll give you an idea of what the current status shows. Now, one important thing that might be of consideration for some of you, specifically those who are in different tax jurisdiction, is that there are certain countries who have different types of tax treaties with various other countries. Now, in some of the jurisdictions do feel that some of the jurisdictions do. Bahamas is sometimes considered as a tax haven because it's a very investor-friendly country. They have very encouraging tax regime. Therefore, in certain jurisdictions, payments arising from Bahamas or countries which might have relaxed taxation could be seen could be looked at more carefully by the income tax authorities of those countries. You might want to look at what is the typical tax treatment in your country vis-a-vis payments coming in from Bahamas. If you have a tax advisor of if you believe there's importance of a tax advisor, you might want to consult in that case. Generally speaking, again, I'm not an advisor. Generally speaking, payments from US is normally considered to be um, more accepted in most other countries, mostly because US has a very strong legal and taxation framework. Also, US is 25% of global GDP, and hence a lot of international payments do arise from US. So, from that perspective, if the amount of payment being received is really large, you might want to consult, specifically speaking, a tax advisor in terms of which of the two jurisdictions might be favorable to you. My apologies, something's off today. Yeah. So ICU says that if you click on step 5, there I have some progress logo. We are good with US process or not, just check once for us, please. ICU, I mean, I cannot be looking at individual, I mean, I cannot be providing advice. That's beyond my scope. But, see, yeah, if you just have a look at the narration given, if the narration looks okay to you, then it should be fine. I mean, they have not just put the logo, they have also put the narration of what that logo implies in terms of the status of and the various steps, and that should be generally good enough. In fact, in one of the other videos that I'd seen, in one of the other discussions that I had seen elsewhere, uh, uh, seemingly US is slightly more relaxed in terms of admitting claims, is what somebody had discussed over a discussion point some point of time. But again, I didn't find any documents to ascertain this. Therefore, I mean, again, you have to take your own decision based on what you interpret out of the symbol that you see in your login. Generally speaking, in my case, I have seen that it's a green tick, which the narration says seems to say everything is all okay. So that's something you might want to look at on your part. Yeah, I think we have been on for around half an hour. It's gone on for 27 minutes and 52 seconds. In case there are any other queries or questions you guys have, just drop it in. I would We can collectively try to find out a solution to this or find an interpretation thereof. If not, we'll rather sign off and move it with the day. Very little time is left for closing the process. If you have not closed the process, it might be worthwhile to rather invest your time and close the process wherever pending, so that the money comes back to us all as faster. As discussed some time back, money within convenience class is likely to be paid out by hopefully by first quarter of 2025. Uh, Outside of convenience class might take a little longer, but generally speaking, I hope money comes back to us faster. Any other queries or a discussion point you want to have? Just put in the comment chat section, and we can take it forward. In the meanwhile, anything else that might be of pertinence? ICU says it shows these logo claims submitted and then check against scheduled claims. I claim is submitted. I can't see, honestly speaking. I don't recollect these options. I can't really comment on those. I don't understand what the logo would be, because I yeah. Any other if there are no other queries then or comments, then I'll rather log off. Do let me know. Otherwise, we can sign off all and proceed with the anything else in the rest of the day. Also, in terms of payouts, I know there was another bankruptcy that was settled, which was Celsius. In case you guys have any other, specifically taxation related queries arise for payments arising out of US, that might be a great lead or an example of what you can expect. My understanding is that withholding taxes for foreign payments were not deducted in Bahamas case, but I'm not very sure about this. If you want, you case. Celsius is a great example. Could be a great example for any interpretation that you might want to deduce yourself. Also, in Celsius case, my understanding is that payments were made through PayPal and through Coinbase, is what I remember having read somewhere. Uh, And those, however, there were certain jurisdictions where neither PayPal nor Coinbase was available. In those jurisdictions, from what I understand, Coinbase, Celsius had paid out through a wire transfer. In the current proceeding, PwC was of the opinion that they would want to avoid wire transfer to save on the cost of remittance. Um, but nonetheless, you can draw some inference from the Celsius instance. Well, 14 people watching it live now, 4 likes. Uh, it'll be great to get some more likes. This will increase the reach. Today is the last day for filing, so the more the number of people get to know about the process and get their queries resolved, the more benefit out of it. It helps the mission of the channel. Uh, with that, I think no more further questions trickling in. If if there's nothing else further to be discussed, maybe we'll log off. We'll sign out. And if you're not subscribed to the channel, subscribe to the channel, because going forward, as and when any actionable arises, I will try to cover in my channel at the earliest, so that you guys do not end up missing out on anything of pertinence or anything of importance. Especially speaking, if it is an important action that may require to get your money back. I hope we get our money back fast, and I don't see any further questions coming in. So with that, we'll sign off, and all the best to you guys. See you.